Okay, I am very worried about Arknights Endfield, and I have put an unreasonable amount of time and hours into the Enfield beta, and I can confidently say this is one of the greatest, most alluring 3D open world gacha games out there. So where does the kind of worry come from? Well, I think it'd be easier to explain with the story. So recently in the late hours of the night, around 2 a.m. or so, I procrastinated on doing all of my gacha dailies that day, just like you might procrastinate on doing your homework in school. And I also hadn't done a single big flagship event in Genshin or HSR for the entire 40-day patch cycle. And the deadline was coming due, because I procrastinated on those as well. So I was forcing myself to do some Genshin puzzle game made for 5-year-olds that I hated with every fiber of my being, but I needed to do it for 60 Primo Gems. And under the crushing pressure of gacha FOMO, I ended up falling asleep at my desk and missing all of my deadlines in both games. When I woke up, I felt the physical pain of all those pulls I missed, so I booted up Elden Ring Night Rain to wash away my regrets. And the funny thing is, as soon as I dropped into the game and the round started, all of my drowsiness instantly fell away, and I was instantly locked into the game and having fun. And then the exact same scenario played out sometime later when I was forcing myself to do Wua's knockoff Vampire Survivors event. And compared to the physical pain of the tiredness and dull monotony that I'd been experiencing playing Genshin and Wua, it felt like God had personally come down to cleanse my soul of gacha brain rot. But I think if God really did notice me that day, I think he'd be disappointed in me for playing Arknights Endfield, because Enfield gets so much correct and is genuinely fun, but the one unescapable demon that is looming over this game is of course the gacha monetization. Now, this isn't going to be another video talking about the specifics of the gacha system and how stupid it is, although we will get into that later. But I want to focus on how they're just taking the wrong path with this game, because they're allowing the gacha monetization to infect every facet of the game, just like how Genshin and Wua and HSR and those other gacha games do. So in gacha games, the gacha typically infects everything from the story writing to character kit designs to the very gameplay content that the devs are allowed to make and put into the game. And despite doing a lot of things differently, like this factory system, which is really satisfying and fun, this game is at risk of copying the Genshin Wua model and just becoming another login simulator where you log in and do chores every day to slowly accumulate currency to pull on a gacha banner every 2 to 3 to 4 months. And these kind of gacha games, they want to appeal to a hyper casual broad audience. And for that reason, they actually actively avoid injecting any replayability into their games. I guess because for the hyper casual crowd, actually playing the game would stress people out or something like that. So to understand the life cycle of these gacha games, you have to understand the era of enshittification that we are currently living through. Enshittification is this term coined by tech journalist Cory Doctorow to essentially describe the degradation of a platform over time. The way it works is that a company first launches a high quality product that is extremely generous to the customer base. Then once they've reeled you in and made you a part of their ecosystem to the point where it's actually harder to leave than to stay, they start nickel and diming you on some BS by adding in more and more anti-consumer business practices to extract more profit from their loyal and dedicated audience. I think this is exactly how gacha games operate. They have these extravagant launches where they all brag about how many gacha pulls they're giving you in the launch window, and all these CCs are freaking jorking it over the company's generosity. And the game is fun because it's new and the human brain craves novelty. And then the gacha FOMO and predatory practices get their tendrils in you to make you a part of their ecosystem before the game quickly starts regressing on the amounts of pools it gives you and the amounts of new content they're bringing out, because they know statistically the vast majority of people that are still around after 1 to 2 months will stick around no matter the level of abuse or lazy content they're forced to swallow because of how gacha FOMO psychology works. And eventually the game just turns into a login simulator where the only goal is to log in and speedrun your dailies and do lazy minigame events that you don't like, so that you can slowly accumulate a carefully calculated amount of drip-fed gacha currency to pull on a character banner once every few months. And why do you even need new characters? I literally can't tell you, because there's no actual content to play them in, other than maybe an end game, which is a DPS check with a timer at the top of the screen, which is the same in every single game. And we'll also have buffs that shill whatever the current banner character is, so it trivializes the experience if you do pull it, but it also feels unnecessarily difficult if you don't pull that character. Games like Chaos Zero Nightmare, Do It Night Abyss, and Where Winds Meet have shown us that it doesn't have to be this way. Games don't have to be a login simulator, even if they also provide a 5-minute per day playing style. Developers can incentivize you to play their game with actual fun gameplay content rather than just the gacha FOMO treadmill of character banners forcing you to log in every day to complete your daily chores. CZN's is a gacha game too, but they actually innovated with their roguelike mode, where you go into this mode and you build a deck, and it's influenced by randomness, and it's actually like a really fun and replayable game mode. So it's not only fun to play like in the moment, but it's also tied to progression, because you can take the deck that you built there into other pieces of content, so it just makes for a really fun gameplay loop. And Do It Night Abyss, it might be imperfect now and has a long list of things to improve on, but the future of that game is extremely bright, because the ceiling of its potential is honestly infinitely higher than the potential of other games like Genshin or Wuwa or HSR, because the active objective of those games is expressly to not provide replayable and like solid gameplay content. I'm pretty sure the Hoyo and Kuro CEOs have both been on record talking about this. They want to remain as casual as possible, right? What Do It Night Abyss is doing is kind of like what Sun Tzu said in The Art of War about putting your soldiers on death ground. So they're put in a position where it's either win or die. It's like when Aaron was staring at himself in the mirror chanting like Tatake, Tatake. If you don't win, you die, and if you don't fight, you can't win. The Do It Night Abyss devs are essentially a small island nation that have gotten their hands on the Attack Titan and are now declaring a war on the entire gacha economy. By deleting the gacha monetization system, they force themselves into an incentive structure where they need to actually make good content to make money. Gacha games, on the other hand, they just need a good launch and like 30 days of good content and to psychologically trap people into their gacha FOMO ecosystem. So rather than keeping their players engaged with actual content, players stick around because of FOMO tactics and sunk cost fallacy. I think if you just look at the recent hype around the drip marketing of the 3.x Wuthering Waves characters, all that Kuro really had to do was drop some new PNGs of upcoming characters, and loads of people were on their knees begging for the opportunity to spend hundreds of dollars on the gacha banner. It's very telling that they didn't even need to release gameplay content for people to get excited. Even the most recent news and videos has nothing related to what the game actually needs, which is replayability and an actual focus on new game modes and novelty in general, with like the ecosystem and the builds and team diversity. All they need to do, all any gacha company needs to do, is show off some shiny new PNGs, some flashy gameplay animations that, by the way, will also get old after you've had them for a week, and you'll start waiting for the next round of shiny new PNGs and gameplay animations. Honestly, they could have the most absolute cinema animations. They could pull in like Ufotable and Mappa animation studios, and they could put the animators in chains and make them slave away on every single character animation and cutscene. But if the game is literally still just the same login simulator of logging in to run 2 tacit fields in a nightmare nest and then log off, I'm sorry, but that's the same grind of daily chores the game has always been. And no amount of riding around a beautiful empty open world on a motorcycle is going to change that. I think the same exact thing goes for Genshin HSR marketing and other gacha game marketing. I worry that Arknights Endfield will take the Genshin Wuwa approach of just front loading a lot of good content into the launch before the game eventually just turns into a login simulator where you're forced to do silly events that you don't like and log in every day for 10 minutes to spend energy and do your daily chores so that you can keep running on the hamster wheel of gacha character banners without actually providing any replayable or interesting content to use those characters in. And it's honestly a tragedy because Arknights Endfield is packed to the absolute brim with amazing gameplay and great ideas, and instead of taking these ideas and giving them elements of replayability and giving them like a life of their own, they're just like one and done systems. Like once you fill up a reputation bar or do an associated quest, there's really no reason to return to them. And it's mind-boggling that Enfield would appeal to the hyper-casual gacha player, and its endgame after the first like 60 to 70 hours is packed with content that will drive away all the hyper-casual gacha players. So like a casual is not going to be happy that they're still doing tutorials for the factory system 15-20 hours in to the game. But the people who love learning the intricacies of complex gameplay loops and then mastering them will absolutely love it, right? And your Genshin and Wuwa players will be having like mental breakdowns, like where's my abyss, where's my tower of adversity, okay, like where's my DPS check with a timer at the top of the screen, because I can't comprehend a game that doesn't have that kind of stuff. And what do you mean I have to learn and craft a factory in order to make gear? Where's my gear system that's just multiple layers of RNG stacked one on top of the other? Like I think gacha players are so like whipped and abused by these corporations that we've reached the point where we're like not even making demands of the companies anymore. And if you do want to criticize a game or a company so that it gets better, then you first have to wade through the masses of like billion-dollar corporation defenders who have like tied their self-worth to the perception of their gacha game. I think we've lost this idea that you should be making outrageous and extravagant demands of these gacha companies. They make absurd amounts of money by using manipulative and predatory monetization. The least they could do is actually reinvest back into the game by putting effort into providing meaningful content rather than just letting enshittification ensue so they can stash away even larger amounts of profit. And there's this like huge misconception by what it means to actually reinvest into the live service of the game. And I'll tell you right now how it works, okay? Games don't make $100 million and then reinvest that back into the same game. Because how would you even do that? You have to ask yourself, how would you even do that? Would you just hire like 1 million developers? That money goes to executives, shareholders, and it goes towards fueling new projects so the company can quarter a different area of the market and start preying on a completely different player base with their gacha BS. Did Hoyoverse put hundreds of millions of dollars back into Genshin? No. They spawned like a dozen different projects and the executives got really, really rich and Genshin got Malastra Wonderland after 6 years, which is the sorriest excuse for content I've ever seen in my life. I don't even think you can call it content, honestly. It's not even Genshin. It's like a completely different thing tacked onto Genshin so they can hopefully get a portion of Genshin's massive player base hooked onto another kind of predatory gacha. And I promise you that Kuro Games is doing the same thing with Wuthering Waves, because actually no, a new character with flashy animations or pretty cutscenes and a beautiful open empty world is not reinvesting into the game. That's part of the product they're selling you in the first place, and they're going to do all that anyway. Reinvesting would be creating replayable gameplay content and then hiring teams of artists to churn out free and earnable skins and cosmetic customization that you can earn for free in-game by doing said replayable content. You know, fashion endgame is a big part of most games, and so giving you fun content to do that you can use to deck out your characters is what these games should be doing, and also like co-op related content. So you can like deck out your character and then show off to your friends or play with your friends, work towards earning things in the game, you know. And if it's what they should be giving us, if they're going to make us swallow this dog shit character gacha and walk away with millions of dollars every month, okay? Instead, we get lazy park management events and basic reskins that cost $30 with no new VFX or voice lines. And yet people still beg on their hands and knees for more $30 lazy reskins. You know, if League of Legends can drop skins with new VFX and voice lines for $30 or less, and cosmetics is their entire business model, then a gacha game where you have to spend hundreds of dollars for characters should be providing all of that for free and earnable in-game. But we never ask for it, and in fact, if you ask for anything from $1 billion company, you get a bunch of losers calling you greedy while they actively fight for a lesser game and a lesser product. And the biggest, most unhealthy piece of cope you will ever hear in your entire life is when someone drops $300 on a character and then brags about how they did it to support the devs, as if $1 billion company really needed your rent money to stay afloat. Enfield's gacha system is equally terrible to all these other gacha systems, and it's actually insulting how purposefully vague and confusing it is. The pity towards the guarantee that doesn't carry over is stupid, and we should stop defending predatory practices with statements like, well, it's a system that punishes impulsive pulling, so I guess you shouldn't have been a degenerate gambler, haha. We, the consumers, are all on the same side, and it's about time we started freaking acting like it and looking out for one another. On a large enough scale, there's going to be plenty of people who get manipulated by this gacha FOMO garbage, and they're going to open their wallets to finish off a guarantee just so they don't have 100 pulls thrown in the dumpster by this stupid gacha system. And I will literally lose zero sleep at night if it turns out that a gacha company makes less money because they didn't put predatory practices into their game. And you shouldn't either, even though plenty of people have these like parasocial relationships with their gacha companies where they like to celebrate how many millions of dollars the company can make through manipulative monetization practices. And you're like, we should be demanding that developers stop putting gacha in their game, period. Because if we don't, then like we'll keep getting beautiful masterpieces like Arknights Endfield developed by passionate developers that could have been like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 games, but are instead infected with gacha bullshit. And if there's going to be gacha, we should be demanding that it's at least a far better system than the crap that we've been swallowing for years with this 80 to 90 pity 50-50 system, much less a system where it's possible to literally set your pulls on fire if you lose a 50-50 and then don't have enough to keep pulling to the guarantee. I promise you, developers, Hypergriff, whatever your name is, that the first time, like many masses of people, the first time they have 100 pulls set on fire by this stupid gacha system, they will Alt F4 and uninstall the game. And I support that, honestly. I support uninstalling after that happens to you because it's a ridiculous conception of a system. We shouldn't be actively fighting for a lesser game because some people like to pretend that they like to touch grass, so they actively defend a system, time gating their playtime for like 5 minutes a day, which is actually the truest antithesis of touching grass, since the dailies plus energy system literally digs its hooks into your brain and forces you to factor the game into your daily routine. Or they celebrate when the developers don't do their jobs and make real content because they'd rather be doing anything else than actually playing the game they purport to love so much. Or they just want the energy system because it stresses them out that other players can get ahead of them by putting in more time, so they prefer to live in this fantasy bubble land where they can rest assured knowing that they've progressed the maximum amount for one day that is possible. Because I am a benevolent streamer guy, I will tell Hypergriff right now how to make Arknights Endfield a perfect 10 out of game, at least by gacha standards. So 1, you should steal Zenless Zone Zero's philosophy on dailies, where you can just click through a menu for 30 seconds and are done for the day if you want to be. It would be extremely easy for them given all of the different resource management activities that are in the game. 2, fix the gacha system by adding previous rate up characters into the standard 50-50 loss pool. They should adjust gacha currency and pull rates, honestly, so that you can guarantee pulling at least every other limited character. Worst case scenario, like if your luck is the worst possible. And the currency given for signature weapons that you get from doing character pulls should be increased so that you can also guarantee every other character's like signature weapon. Number 3 and last, focus on making replayable and rewarding gameplay content. You should do exactly what I said about creating really great cosmetic options for characters, and then building that incentive structure into the replayable content, and then make a co-op so people can play with their friends and show off to their friends their cool like cosmetic customization and skins and stuff that they've earned in the game. And this should also be pretty easy because all they have to do is, you know, just spend some of the tens of millions of dollars they're going to make on this game on artists and character designers, and then tweak some game modes that already exist in the game, like the extraction mode and the tower defense mode, and then add some sort of co-op element, and then, you know, again, just have skins be the reward for playing that, or like more weapon currency as well. So if they take all of my advice, then Arknights Endfield could be at least a 9.5, possibly a 10 out of 10 game by gacha standards. And even though the energy and gacha system are probably here to stay, you know, which is unfortunate, unless of course the developers pull a Do It Night Abyss and try to remove the gacha 2 months away from release, in which case I will dedicate my life to these developers, and I will personally slob on their knobs at every possible opportunity. Please remember to rate the video. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with anything I've talked about, and you know, if you liked it, then consider subscribing. All right, peace. Okay, cool. See you in the next one. Bye bye. Okay, see ya. Keep fighting for better games, by the way. Long live the gamer. Keep fighting for better games.